So, welcome to the Spiritual Hour. This is episode number 5, and today we're talking all about animal communication. Now, I'm sure many of you listening to this today have probably had animals within your lifetime, whether they was yours or your family's animals. And I'm sure that a lot of you built up a very strong connection and love with these animals. And some of you may be wondering, when they pass over, do they come to watch over us? Do they still come through in the spirit world as an animal? And the answer to that question is most definitely yes, 100%. Now, I've brought so many animals through in readings over the years, absolutely loads, ranging from cats, dogs, horses, rabbits, guinea pigs, tortoises, you name it, they've probably come through at some point. And they all communicate in exactly the same way with me. With my main or strongest gift being clairvoyance, that is the way that they communicate with me to let me know what it is they want me to say to whoever I'm passing the message on to. Now, the beauty of animals when they come through, it's a very different energy to working, for instance, with, say, a mother or a grandmother. It's a very different energy. It comes forward in a way of pure love and unconditional love with these animals. And obviously, they build a very strong bond and connection with the family and become one of the family. Now, often people will say to me, Carl, well, how do you understand the animals? Well, for me, it's quite simple. Through clairvoyance, I'll receive certain images which I understand what they're trying to say to me to pass on. So, for instance, if I was to get shown an animal, for instance, a dog, and I might get taken to the back legs of the dog, and that would indicate to me that there was an issue with the legs of the dog. I may get shown, for instance, the dog was blind. I might get a glare over the eye to understand that the dog was blind. I may also get shown, for instance, the dog's stomach. So I usually get shown them on the back with the legs up, and I get shown the stomach with bumps on the stomach for me to understand there was some form of stomach cancer with the dog. So this helps me to understand how the dog would have passed over or what its ailments may have been. Then sometimes I might also get shown things like the end of life. So for example, sometimes we've taken our animals to the vets and we've had our animals put to sleep. Now, people often say to me, Carl, does the animals forgive me? And the answer to this question is most definitely yes. When we've had to do something like this, we've often done this out of love because of the suffering that they're going through, and we don't want their suffering to go on any longer. So sometimes they may see in a reading somebody taking the dog to the vets or the cat and standing next to it, and I may also see a needle for me to understand that the animal was put to sleep. This helps me to understand around the final moments of the animal's life. And often people say to me, do they forgive me? Do they forgive me? And of course, the animals always forgive you because they know how much you love them, and they know that they were suffering so much. We do this only because we love them and we don't want that suffering to go on any longer. But also the animals may show me parts of their character and personality. And the way I might get shown that would be, for instance, some dogs may have had a bed that they should sleep in the living room, for example, but instead they decide to jump into your bed. So I might get shown that. I might get shown, for instance, animals with anxious behaviour. So whether they would get quite upset when you left the room and they get quite anxious and things like that. I may also see an animal that loved to dig and ruin a garden and things like that. So these are some of the other ways that the animals will communicate with me to let me know parts of their behaviors. Sometimes the animals will let me know some of the favourite things that they like to do. And for instance, whether that was you taking them to the beach, whether that was them enjoying walking to the local park and running around the local park, or maybe just taking them for a walk every single day, whatever those favourite moments or things that you did with that animal, they may come through in the reading. Now, sometimes they'll also give me things like where parts of the character, so whether they was what I'd call like a shadow, so when you would walk somewhere in your house and they'd follow you like your shadow, so wherever you went, the animal would go with you. So then I'd also understand the bond and connection between yourself and the animal and how much the animal loved you too. And I might also get to see things like you might be at the fridge getting something out of the fridge, and all of a sudden the animal's standing there just waiting for you to get, whether it be cheese out of the fridge or fresh cream or whatever it was that their favourite thing was. But they will show me things like this for me to understand. Then I might also get shown, for instance, whether it was an animal that was buried, I might get shown a cross in a garden, or I might get shown an urn to help me to understand whether it was buried or whether it was cremated. And sometimes I may even see where this may be in the house if it's been cremated, and if there's some sort of picture around the area. Sometimes I might see it like that too. So the animals have so many different ways of communicating with me. And I think one of the moments that I will never forget, I was doing a reading for someone live on TikTok, and I remember I was bringing an Alsatian through, and I could see the Alsatian trying to jump what looked like a barbed wire fence, but unfortunately it caught its genital area on the fence and lost one of its testicles. And I remember the sitter, so the person I was reading for on TikTok, going, "Oh my goodness me, that was my uncle's dog." And so you never know what you're going to see, how you're going to see it. You know, for instance, with cats, they can be very different to dogs in the sense of the way that they behaved, and sometimes even the way that they passed, because obviously they're more independent animals that go out on their own, that don't usually need their owner. And they can be very different in their characteristics, that the way that they may come through me. And it may also be, for instance, a parrot or any other type of bird that comes through, and the way that they may show me their characteristic, their personality, and how they enjoyed parts of their life and some of those parts that they shared with you too. So that's the beauty of working with the animals. I feel very blessed in the fact that I get to become their voice and get to say the things that they never got to say, and sometimes being able to reconnect those people to their animals and pass on those messages that needed to be passed on towards the end of their life, because there's so many people that love their animals as much as they love their partners and their children. And I understand that love is something that's very, very strong. I may even get shown, for instance, when somebody's lost an animal, I might get shown a paw print tattoo. Now, to me, that just tells me that someone's had a tattoo in honour of their pet. So whether it is a paw print or not, but it helps me to understand that someone's had a tattoo in honor of that animal. So it's just another way of them communicating with me and me understanding the picture that I've been given and how I interpret that into a message. Now, for me, I also feel too. So not only do I see, but I also feel. So I can feel the love, I can feel the bounce, the energy. I can feel whether it's a mischievous animal. I think it was only yesterday I was doing a reading for someone and I could see a Jack Russell. And I could see that there was quite a mischievous energy with this Jack Russell that was coming through. And so there's always different parts of the personality that will come through to me in one way or another. But one of the other parts that I also enjoy is that I'm also able to read animals that are still living. So I can be connecting to you in a reading, for example, and I might say I'm seeing, just an example, I'm seeing a golden retriever, and they go, oh yes, I've got a golden retriever, I've got one here, and all of a sudden they bring it on the camera. And then all of a sudden I might be starting to pick up more information. So I've got a problem with the foot, I've got a problem with the throat, I've got a problem with the ear. So different energies that I can pick up as a medical intuitive, what I feel is going on with the animal, whether it be physically, whether it be emotionally. There's things that I can tune into and read. And I think there was a lady that I read for in America, maybe about a year or two ago, and I was doing a private reading with her. And I remember bringing this dog, saying, I see this dog. And they said, yeah, that's my dog. I said, but I'm being told that the dog's broke its leg. And they said, I'm not sure about that. We did suspect something was wrong, but I'm not sure about that. So obviously they followed up what I said. They took the dog to the vets, got the dog a scan, and it turned out that the dog's leg was broke. And so following the advice that I'd given, they went and got it checked. And then obviously later confirmed that the animal had broke its leg. So sometimes I'm able to tune in to things that have happening, or something that's coming up. And whether it's your dog that's got ear infections, whether it's something to do with their sight, whether it's something to do with their bones and arthritis or any structure to the bones or anything like that, it may be something that comes up in a reading. And it's beautiful how spirit work with me to give me this information. So when I'm working in this way, my guides will be working with me too, and I may be seeing something about a cat or a dog and any types of physical or emotional issues that I also need to bring up in a reading. So that's the beauty of working with the animals and being able to understand what they're trying to say and how it's trying to be said. Now, when they're living, obviously it's different to when they're being in the spirit world. So when they're in the spirit world, obviously that is still what we'd call a mediumship reading, because they're still on the other side, so it's a spirit. When they're living, it's more what we consider a psychic reading. So we're reading a living person or situation. So we're tuning into them on a psychic link. And again, we'll get this information from our guides as we start to tune in. I also do 1-day workshops on this. So sometimes from springtime, so from March up to about October, I do some workshops where I also help others to understand how to connect with their animals and learn how to read animals in spirit, but also animals that are still living. And that's usually a 1-day workshop that I do on a Saturday quite often. So for those that may be interested in that in the future, again, you can get in touch with me if it's something that you feel that you would like to understand how to do that. But it's something that I really enjoy doing, just because, you know, when we walk this planet, often a lot of people think that, you know, humans are the only important thing on the planet. But of course, we know that that's not true. We know that there's many animals that we've all had, and, you know, whether they connect to you or your family members, and the love and the bonds that you've had. Because I'll often do readings for people where let's say I bring through a border collar, and they'll say, "Oh no, Carl, I've not got that dog." Well, actually, I used to have one when I was a kid, and then I just giggle, and I say to them, "So you did have the dog, of course, but yeah, but it was when I was a kid." I was like, "You do realise that, whether it was last year or 10 years or 20 years ago, that animal would still go to spirit. So whether it was last week or last year or 30 years ago, it'd still go to spirit world and it would still want to come forward and it'd still want to let you know that it thinks of you and it's around you and things like that." And so I often giggle about things like that because, well, I didn't have it, it was a long, long time ago. So I try and explain to people it doesn't matter how long ago you had this animal, how long ago you connected. Love is love, and love is eternal. And again, with the energy of the spirit, as we always say, the spirit is eternal too. So even when they cross over, they still want to come through. They still want to connect, and they still want to let you know that they're around you too. Now, some of you may also sometimes sense or feel animals around you. And the way that might happen, you may be sitting there just kind of chilling, and all of a sudden, out the corner of your eye, you might see a black shadow. Now, obviously, the taller ones may be humans, and the smaller ones may be children, and even smaller ones may be animals. So it helps you to distinguish how big the shadow essentially is to whether it's an animal or whether it's a human being. And this will help you to understand if you're feeling that around you, then there's a good chance that one of your animals may be around you. Some of you also might get a smell or a scent from your animal. So you might be just sitting there and all of a sudden just get this smell that reminds you of your animal, but yet you've got nobody else in the room or no other animals in the room. But all of a sudden you get this scent that reminds you of your animal. And again, this is a little sign of your animals letting you know that I'm still around you. And through the psychic gift of smelling, this is how they let you know. So it's more of a subtle one. No different to our family in spirit, where you might smell Nan's perfume or Granddad's aftershave or anything like that. Animals work in the same way. And so sometimes they may give you that scent or even that feeling that you're being watched. And you might have that feeling that you're looking round and all of a sudden you might not be able to see it, but you may be able to sense one of your animals is around you. So this is something to also bear in mind, that when our animals want to come through, they'll find a way to come through. They'll find a way to let you know that they're thinking about you. And they may also come through in your dreams too. In your dreams, you might be thinking about them, you may be dreaming about them, you may be dreaming about reconnecting with them. But the animals are beautiful souls, and the way that they bring so much unconditional love to us. And when you've just come back from work and the animals jump up and they greet you, and your dog's there and they're so happy to see you, or your cat's there and your cat's meowing. And for those of you with any other animals, for instance horses or anything like that, they're always very, very grateful. There was somebody that I read for maybe 6 months ago, maybe. And I remember doing a reading for them and telling them that I felt like there was a problem with their horse's hoof. I felt like there was a problem at the foot, the hoof area, and something that I felt like needed looking at. And I think a week or two later, they got back to me and they told me that there was some form of infection in there, and it cost them quite a lot to obviously get looked at. But it was something that came up about a week or a week too later, after I was reading them. So I sometimes get to see it before it happens or as it's happening, and then it might be later on that my client realises, oh my God, what Carl said, it's actually come to fruition. And I think there was another lady that I read for. She may be listening to this podcast too, and I'm sure it was a goose. it came through in a reading where I could see it, and then I could see it was wrapped in like a white sheet, and they'd buried the animal. So the animal had passed. They'd buried the animal, and I could see them first cuddling it, and then burying the animal. And I could see all the tears around it, and the client had told me nothing, like literally nothing. And I was just basically tuning into what I was seeing. And they said to me, yes, the animal did pass. Yes, I did put a white blanket around it. Yes, I did cuddle it. And I was very tearful because I know that this person lives on a farm. And so it doesn't matter whether it's a cat or a dog or a chicken or a geese. It makes no difference. They still want to communicate with us. And you just don't know which animal may come through. And there was another one that I did. Again, I think this one was live on TikTok. There was somebody asked me about an animal that they'd seen that day, and it was a fox that had been ran over, and they tried to help the fox. And this is what I was being shown in the reading. They tried to help the fox, but the fox had been hit by a car. And again, the way I was seeing it in the reading was how much they tried to help the fox, the fox's appreciation for this, but eventually the fox did pass over. So it goes to show that the universal language of clairvoyance talks every single language, whether it be, a horse, a fox, a geese, a cat, a dog. It makes no difference. They all talk through the same language that I understand and you could understand too, through clairvoyance. So it goes to show how beautiful the language can be, passing on some of these much needed messages that they want to pass on to us for whatever reason it is, but they want to pass on to us. And I remember, even where I live now, I remember being outside, this is a good 8 years ago, and getting this vision of this black and white dog, and I kept being shown it underneath my shed. And my neighbour who lives there now, I remember speaking to them and saying to them after I had this vision, and said, is there a dog? Would you know if there was a dog that was buried in the corner where the shed is now? And they used to live there. And they said to me, yes, that dog was buried a long, long time ago, but yes, it was buried right underneath your shed in the corner. So sometimes the channeling with the animals can be very quick. Sometimes the messages can be 5 seconds or 10 seconds, but just to let me know where they are for whatever reason, their resting place. But because I also knew that when I was changing my garden around, I made sure that I didn't dig in that space at all. I made sure that when I was doing all the digging and putting stuff down in the garden, that was a space that I didn't touch, I didn't dig, because I was aware of that. And maybe they was aware that I was going to make all these changes in my garden. So as random as the message was and the channeling was, there was a reason for it, and I didn't go round with my spade digging there or anything else like that. I just simply put white stones on the top and left it because I didn't want to disrupt it. I wanted it just to stay at the same piece that it had for all those years. So the messages can be so random when they come through. It can be short, they can be longer, and in even other ways too. I've done private readings for people where I've been shown a bird flying into a window. And sometimes they'll even specifically get shown the colour of the bird to help me understand what type of bird and breed it might be. And somebody may say to me, yes, that happened to me 2 days ago or a week ago. And I may also say to them, I feel that if it hasn't happened, just look out for it over the next few days. And I'm told to tell you to make sure that you put it to rest in a peaceful way. So I always get shown the earth because I know that not everybody does it that way, unfortunately. So again, passing messages on for what may happen, what may come up, and how they can deal with that situation in the most ethical way for the animal too. And that's what I love about the way that everything's in synchronicity. I remember it's got to be about 4 or 5 years ago. And was coming up to the anniversary of my brother's passing, and I was feeling real down and down in the dumps that day. And so I decided that I was just going to go for a walk just to clear my head. And I was really desperate for a sign that day, like really needed a sign from him. So I'm walking through my local park, and as I'm going through the local park, all of a sudden I'm thinking, do I go straight on or do I turn left? For some reason, I was told I needed to turn left. And when I turned left, I was told when I got to the end, through the woods, there'd be a bush at the end, and I was going to see the robin there, and that was going to be my sign. So I followed. I followed exactly what it said, and I decided to take the route through the woods and walk to the woods right at the end, and there's this bush at the end. And this kind of berry bush, the robin was sitting right there, just waiting for me. Completely changed my day. It was my sign that I needed, that my brother was watching over me. And it also tells you how things are in synchronicity, and how messages can come through in many, many different ways. But again, often, particularly in the UK, and I know some other parts of the world too, when the robin comes through, it's often a little sign for us to know that one of our loved ones was watching over us. And this particular day, I understood exactly who it was from, because I hadn't seen the robin in a good year or so. It was something I really needed in that day for me to know he was watching me that day. So that was something that really lifted me up. So again, the animals can communicate in one way or another. And yes, this message would have come through my guides, but it was an animal that I saw that was my sign that connected me back to my brother. And that was something that really changed for me, because we all know, when it comes to things like finding white feathers, we know that that's a sign from our loved ones too, which also, of course, connect to birds. The robin may be a sign if you're probably from the UK, Canada, maybe some other parts of Europe, maybe some parts of US too. And I know that then other parts it may be a cardinal. So again, depending on what part of the world you're from, how this bird would kind of connect for a loved one in spirit, and how that may come through. And so it's beautiful how they come through. Something else that I was being shown when I first going through my spiritual awakening, I was in this particular house, I was in the garden, and at the time I was seeing so many images, like one after another, and a lot of them were spirits. However, this particular day, I had a garden full of animals in the spirit. And so whether these was cows, whether these was sheep, chickens, I could see just tons of them. And at the time, I had no idea why I was seeing it like this, but I believed what I was seeing, of course. And it was only later that I started to do some research, where I started to understand that where I live now, it used to be a farm. There used to be farmlands here, and that's exactly why I could see all these animals that used to come to this part and chill at this part. They was just coming through, letting me know that they was connected to me. But again, animals bring different meanings to us too. So whether it be a spirit animal and a spirit animal meaning, and sometimes they can bring messages too. I remember when I was going through a really difficult part in my life, and I remember sitting out in the garden, and all of a sudden I could see and hear an owl on the roof of my house, and I could hear the twit-to-oo, and I understood at this particular point the message behind the owl. Of seeing an owl could mean there would be some form of knowledge, wisdom. They are the eyes of the night, so when everyone's sleeping, they're the watcher of the night, essentially. But the owl also helps with things like justice and injustice. And at this particular time, I was going through a difficult situation. And so I took that sign for me at the time as help with legal matters. And it just so turns out that that animal stayed with me for quite a long time physically. And later on, it helped me to go through my legal situations in a good way and also get the outcome that I needed. So sometimes random animals and synchronicities can bring certain messages to you. Whether you've had, let's say you don't normally have squirrels in your back garden, and how that can bring a message to you for some way. And if you're never sure of what the message is, you can always just type in on Google, what is the spiritual meaning of the squirrel, just as an example. And then it will come up and tell you what it feels like that message is. What's the reason for that animal being with you? What's the message that it brings to you for you to understand? And I remember having I think it was a bullfrog. Never had a frog in the garden. We don't have water in the garden. There's no pond or anything like that. And just one night, sitting there about 9 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden I hear this noise, and I think, what is that? And I look round, and there's this massive frog. Now, bearing in mind, like, I've never had a frog in the garden, and there's this massive frog. So again, obviously, looking into the meaning of that and understanding what it meant for me at the time. It fitted in with what was going on with my life at the time, what message or guidance I needed going forward. So again, I would have just gone onto Google and typed in what is the spiritual meaning of the frog and what attributes that might bring to me as understanding that may be one of my spirit animals at the time, or at least a message for me to understand. So animals and their communication can bring so many messages, because obviously if it's just a normal animal you see every day, then it's, you kind of just take it as it is. But if you're seeing something that wouldn't normally necessarily cross your path, you think, I've not seen one of them before, I wonder what that means. And again, that would be your time to go and have a look. What is the spiritual meaning of this? What is the spiritual meaning of that? And understanding what the message may be with these particular animals. So animals can bring so many different messages to us and what it is that they're trying to say. And, for example, in a reading, I may see, let's just say I'm reading for someone, so I see them with a turtle shell or tortoise shell, whatever you want to call it. And that helps me to understand their personality is hard on the outside and soft on the inside. They've always wear a hard exterior for whatever reason. And so these different meanings can help me to understand not only the animal, but what message I need to pass on for the person I'm reading for. So animals can work in so many ways, reading for humans, reading animals for humans, and passing on the messages that people really, really need to hear when they're coming through as well. And that's what I love about this. And I would love one day to be able to take my work with animals to another level, to take it to, for instance, where they've got like zoos or places similar to that, to be able to help in some way and maybe see things that maybe the people that haven't seen, for instance. So I would love to be able to do that. Because obviously the way that I work, I might see it as an X-ray in my head. So I might see, for instance, like an X-ray of the leg, an X-ray of the jaw, an X-ray of the chest. And that's the way I might see it inside my head. Or I might get shown the limb or the organ. So that's how I see medical issues. Sometimes it'll be a scan result, an X-ray result. And sometimes it will be the organ or the limb for me to understand which part of the body is the issue and what the issue may be. So it's something that I really enjoy doing. And the thing is with this too is there's never any that feeling of thank you from the animals, but you don't do it for that reason. I don't mean the ones in spirit. I'm talking about the ones that are living. But it still gives me such peace and a feeling of, like, a really good feeling of being able to help these animals And you don't do it for a thank you, you do it because you can, because you're able to connect with them, you're able to communicate with them, you're able to pass these messages on. And that's what I like about that. It's just very different to working with humans and how we interact with humans very differently to our animal friends. And the relationships that we have, although love is love, of course, but the time and the relationships that we have with our animals are often different, of course, to our family at home. But what's not different is the love that you shared, the memories that you shared, the time that was shared. That's not different. And that's something that's beautiful in the way that animals can bring that through in a message to let you know that they're with you, to let you know they're around you, to let you know that they know you miss them and they miss you too. Whatever that message may be, they'll find a way, some way, shape, or form to let you know that they are with you too, and they're always in your thoughts as much as you're in their thoughts too. And that's what I love about the way that the communication can go on with the animals. I suppose in this journey that I do, I often do like spiritual healing and Reiki healing and things like that. And of course, you're able to do that with animals too. And whether that be again in person or distant healing, again, it's still that sort of energy healing and communication between you and them, because you've got to connect to them. As a distant healer, you've got to connect to them and connect to their energy, and then be able to send that energy to them in some way, shape, or form. And that's something that I enjoy doing. And I know that a lot of my students or clients that I work with will often tell me that they also do a little bit of Reiki for their animals too. And sometimes that will come forward in a reading too, of them letting me know that how much the person loved them, how much they tried to help them, whether there was issues with skin conditions, food conditions, allergens, things like that. Some of those things might come up in readings too. So again, it's beautiful how the animal world work. And for those of you as well that may be listening and wondering, what's the deal then with Greywolf, Carl? What's the deal with Greywolf? Where does Greywolf come from? Well, it comes from two places. Greywolf is my Native American chief spirit guide, who was also a medicine man. But I also have a wolf, a spirit wolf, so an animal in spirit. How we have spirit animals, well, mine is one of them, I should say, is a wolf. And so the wolf connected to the wolf, grey wolf, the native spirit, but also my wolf animal. And so that's where it came from. But I suppose for my love for animals too, I wanted to honour them. I wanted to honour my guide because of what he does and how he does it. I wanted to honour them too, because yes, I may be the person on the front of the screen doing the readings all the time, but I wanted to honour them. So yes, there's an association with wolf, but there's also an association with Grey Wolf, my spirit guide. So some of you may be curious to where that might come from, because the link with the animals and the wolf, and you can see obviously just over there in the corner of the window, get my finger the right way, just there, there's a little wolf there as well, as you can see. So I do love being around animals and being in nature, and I've always had this thing like I'd love to go to a place and visit the wolves. I've got this thing about wanting to go and visit lions and tigers too. Maybe call me mental, I'm not sure, but I would love to just go and visit these animals. I'm not sure if it's safe to, but I like the idea of it. I see all these lovely videos of other people doing it online, and yes, there's always dangers, of course. But there's this other side of me too that would really love to go and do something like that in the near future. So I don't know. Who knows what spirit's got in store for me, but it's definitely something that I would like to do. So if you're out there right now and you're wanting to connect and communicate with one of your animals that may be in spirit, One way I would recommend this is, for me, when I do it, I start by visualizing. And so if I want to connect with one of my old animals, I'll firstly close my eyes, take in a few deep breaths, and then I'll visualize the animal in my head and repeat the name. I'll start taking in some deep breaths as I'm doing it, again visualizing on the animal. And as I start to do this, then I can start to feel a connection to myself and the animal. Now, some of you may feel it in your chest. Some of you may feel it in your stomach. Some of you may see the animal. Some of you just may feel the presence of the animal around you. In your head is where you do the talking, so you don't have to talk through your mouth. In your head, you can tell them that you love them, that you miss them. You can tell them anything you want to through your head, through your mind. And when you're doing that, you may start getting things that come back in your mind. So whether that be pictures, feelings, or words, that's how they'll communicate back with you, depending on what your psychic gifts may be, to how they communicate back with you. But it is something that I would recommend giving it a try. Giving it a try and seeing if you can connect with one of your animals. Now, I do have a video. I think there's a video on TikTok. I'm sure there is. There's a video on TikTok of me telling you how to connect to your animal. But for those of you that may be watching this on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, wherever you may be seeing this, Facebook, Instagram, make sure you come over to my YouTube channel, which is Greywolf Psychic Medium, because I am going to be putting some meditations on there too. To whether that be a healing meditation, connecting to your animals, connecting to your spirit guides. So I am going to be putting more meditations on my YouTube channel. So yeah, make sure you head over to there, Greywolf Psychic Medium on YouTube, and you can also find them. So if there's something that you want to connect to, whether it be a loved one in spirit, a spirit guide, an animal, etc., etc., you'll be able to find them there. So that's something that I'm also doing. Also, I'm going to be going live on YouTube. So over the next week or two, I'm going to be going live on YouTube to do a few mini readings and a Q&A. So again, look out for that notice on YouTube for when I'm going live. So it's going to be about a week's time, roughly, give or take. So look out for that. I will put a notice out on my notice board on YouTube, and there may also be a post that goes around. So look out for that, because hopefully I'll be able to also connect with you guys through the live as well, because I know some of you might see me on Facebook or TikTok, and I think it'll be only my second live ever on YouTube. So it's something that I want to do a little bit more, and be able to connect with you guys. You guys might be asking me questions, or I might even be doing some readings. Who knows? Depends how the evening goes. But I do want to try and bring you over there, because there's a lot more things I can do on YouTube that I can't do on, say, Facebook or Instagram, because the content's too long to put on those pages. So that's why I want to steer it over to YouTube, where I can have a section just for meditations as well. And so obviously you can come over there and also do the lives on there. So I'm really looking forward to being able to connect with you guys more and try and teach you more as well, because being a reader, I don't like to limit myself. So whether I'm connecting to you, whether I'm connecting to your spirits, whether I'm connecting to your animals, or whether I'm doing body scans, whatever it is that I might be doing, I try not to limit myself. If there's a gift that I understand that I've got and I understand how to use it, then I'll try and share my knowledge with you guys on how you can start to use that yourself too. Okay, so it might be something that you understand. And for those of you that may be interested in learning animal communication or body scanning, some of those workshops, like I say, they'll be coming up over the next couple of months. I'll start doing those, and they're one-day workshops. So it's just something to look out for. And I hope that more and more of you guys learn to connect with with your animals, whether they're living or whether they're past. And it will help you to then gain that sort of connection, that communication, the understanding of what might be wrong with your animal, or what message they want to pass on, depending if they're past or living. And it's something I really, really want to push more, because there is mediums out there that do animal communication, but there's not many. I will be honest. I've come across a few, but not many at all. Now, I know tons of mediums, but I don't know many that do animal communication. I can probably count on one hand. And so the more people that can learn to do it, the more that they can connect with their animals too, and start to understand what it is that they want to say, how they want to say it, how they want to bring you that comfort, because they'll be very aware that if you've lost an animal either recently or in the past, and you've been down and you've been sad and you've been worried, what happens to them, where do they go, do they cross over to the spirit, or do they cross over to the rainbow bridge, as we often refer it to with the animals? They'll want to let you know one way or another that they are okay. And sometimes they can show it in different ways, because people may say to me, Carl, I dreamt about me nan or me cat or me dog or whatever, but they didn't say anything to me. And I will say to them, well, depending on what gifts that you have to the way that they communicate. So clairvoyant to see, clairaudient to hear. If you're not clairaudient, then you have to speak through the pictures and talk through the pictures and understand the pictures. And so sometimes their presence just means that I'm here, I'm watching over you. And sometimes no words are needed. That is the message, that they're there, they're watching over you. And most of all, they're okay. And so sometimes that is what the message is. Sometimes the message isn't as complicated. And sometimes, obviously, they'll have different messages for you, whatever they may be. But if you're clairaudient, you'll hear it. And if you're clairvoyant, you'll see it. And if you're clairsentient, you'll feel it. And it's understanding all these different clairs that you might have and how to interpret what they're saying to you and how you understand that, or even how you may pass that on to somebody in a reading. I just love how all the animals have such a beautiful energy to work with. It's just so different to humans. It's just very, very different. And of course, there's very beautiful humans out there, don't get me wrong, that have crossed over. But I've always found my work with animals very, very different. Just it's more of a, I suppose, because they couldn't talk to you in the way that I understand the images. So becoming their voice to me is very important, and I would love to do more readings like that in the future. Now, I do private readings for people where they may come to me and say, Carl, I'm not interested in getting a reading from my mum or my dad or my nan or my granddad. I've just lost a dog. Can you connect with my dog? And I'll say, of course. Now, as I always say with people, as a medium, I don't get to choose who comes through. I just open and allow them to come through. If you want someone specific to come through, whether that be a person or an animal, for that I would recommend a photo reading, and I'll guarantee that I'll connect to that person or that animal. But some people want to leave it open too, so they're kind of like, I don't want to necessarily say I want one person to come through. I'll just see who comes through. So it depends. If you definitely want this person or animal to come through, a photo reading is definitely a way to do it. I don't ask for any more information on booking. I'll just say, this is the payment, this is the time, this is the date. I just need a photo, and send me a photo, and then I usually get the photo 2 or 3 days before the booking. Before the reading. And then that gives me time to connect with the photo, connect with the animal, and then pass on any messages on that I need to pass on as well to the person. So I love the fact that I can do that, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that, again, may even be listening to this podcast right now, where they're probably thinking, I love the fact that my animals come through to Carl, or I would love my animal to come through. Whichever way it is, yes, I do readings for animals. So if it's something that you ever want to do, it is something that you can come to me for, and you can message me through Facebook or Instagram, or even TikTok now, for any inquiries about any private readings or anything like that. So I hope all of you have enjoyed the talk today about animal communication, the way it works with me, the type of messages that I've brought through, or how I've interpreted what they've given me to pass on to you or to somebody else. It's a magical world, and when you grow up, we all kind of grow up in this sort of like environment where we used to kind of mix mud and think we was making a magic mud pie and things like that. And that mindset of a magical fairy kind of universe that we had as a kid. And then we grow up and we kind of get past all that stuff and we kind of lose that magic in a way. There's a lot of conditioning that goes on with us all, with people around us saying, don't be so silly, there's no such thing as this and that, and blah, 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 blah. And then we get to this point in our life where actually we realise that the universe is a lot more magical than we actually realised. And actually, yes, there is things out there that we don't understand, whether that be the spirits out there, the animals out there, or anything else. There is things out there that we don't understand. And the universe is a very magical place. And, you know, whether we're bringing spirits through, and I talk about it too when I talk about healing work, and how amazing healing work can be, and understanding energy and things like that. So that's why I always refer to the universe being such a magical place, bringing through the animals, bringing through the humans, doing all this healing work, and understanding all the different elements and layers and things about prayers and the magic of prayers, and understanding all these different layers and elements that sort of come with that. And so it made you realise that when you're growing up as a kid and you've got that sort of magical head on your shoulders, thinking everything is, and then you kind of get a little bit older and then you lose that, but then you find it again. I did anyway on my journey, where I realised that all that conditioning that you go through as a kid gets you to a point in your life that everything that you learnt becoming an adult, you have to unlearn all over again. And you have to unlearn all that conditioning that you've had to realise that actually it is as magical as you thought in the first place. Really strange how it kind of goes round and round about in a circle. So if you've got any children or grandchildren that are sort of in that magical place right now, and they're making magical mud pies and things like that, leave them to be magical. Let them be magical, and let them connect with the world and the universe in that beautiful way that some of us lose along the way. And sometimes we have to wait 20, 30, 40 years to find that all over again. And that's why I kind of sit there and kind of smile to myself about this, because I'm like, you do all that living, all that conditioning to go roundabout circles to go, actually, it was magical in the first place. So, guys, I hope you've all enjoyed today. You have been listening to The Spiritual Hour. I'm Greywolf Psychic Medium, and I'll see you all again next Thursday. So until then, take care, guys.